I decided to go camping alone in the Mojave Desert a few years ago. I thought I could clear my head and find inspiration for my writing. I set up my tent under a blanket of stars, feeling the stillness of the desert all around me. It was peaceful then, but I had no idea what was coming. The first night, I wrote for hours, enjoying the quiet. I had a light snack and crawled into my sleeping bag, feeling good about the night. Around midnight, I heard a faint tapping sound. I thought maybe it was just a small animal. I dismissed it and tried to focus on my notebook. But then the noise returned, louder this time. My heart raced. I felt uneasy that I wanted to ignore it. I didn't want to be scared. The next night I wrote late again. That tapping returned. It felt like it was right at the edge of my tent. I sat up, listening carefully, stopped for a moment and then came back. But this time it was mixed with whispering. I couldn't make out the words, but it felt like the sounds surrounded me. My skin prickled. I wanted to yell, but I was too scared to make a sound. I hoped it was just the wind, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. On the third night, it got worse. I woke up disoriented and again heard the whispers. The tapping was now frantic, like someone was tapping on my door, wanting in. I didn't want to look, but I had to. I opened the tent flap and looked out into the moonlit desert. It was empty. I took a breath of relief, but something felt off. I noticed odd footprints near my campsite. They didn't look like anything I had seen before. My heart raced again. I could have packed my stuff and left, but I felt glued to the ground. Then everything changed. I was trying to write again to drown out the noise. The tapping became rhythmic, like a heartbeat. I thought I saw a shadow darting between the cacti. I felt something watching me. I stood up, my heart racing. I wanted to escape, but I felt stuck. And then, I heard a voice, really close to me. "Why are you here?" It echoed in the quiet that I turned to look, but nobody was there. I stumbled backward. The shadows shifted. The air felt thick, and all I could hear was my heart pounding in my ears. I turned to get into my tent, but the darkness closed in around me. I don't know what I experienced out there. I don't think I ever will. Was it real, or just a trick of my mind? I just knew I had to leave before it was too late. I packed up my things, shaking all the while. I drove home through the night, feeling like something was still with me. It was a trip I'll never forget. When I got home, I thought it was finally over. I shook off the memories, convincing myself it was a bad dream. I tried to resume my normal life, focusing on my writing, but I couldn't escape what happened. The shadows seemed to linger in my mind, teasing me. Days passed and I rarely slept well. Every noise seemed exaggerated. My neighbors mowed the lawn, kids laughed outside, but every sound set my pulse racing. I avoided the desert, but the whispers followed me into my dreams, echoing, "Why are you here?" Then, a week later, I received an email that made my stomach drop. It was from a writer's forum I belonged to. The subject line read Mojave Desert Encounters. I opened it, my heart racing. The post detailed eerie experiences that summer, reporting strange noises, unexplainable shadows, and footprints similar to what I had seen. Each story left me more unsettled. Someone even included a map of the area where I'd camped. Their location was marked with a red dot, labeled haunted spot. I shivered at the thought. Could it be that I wasn't the only one? Curiosity got the better of me. I spent the next few nights reading other posts, digging deeper into people's experiences. One user included a link to a YouTube video. It featured a group that camped in the same area as I did. Watching it was like reliving my own terror. They filmed shadows moving where there shouldn't be any. The comments were filled with people sharing similar stories. They felt watched, heard voices, and wished they never went. That night, unable to resist, I decided to go back to the desert. I thought maybe testing my courage might help me reclaim my peace of mind. I packed my gear, determined to find answers. When I arrived at the site, the sun dipped below the horizon, plunging the landscape into an eerie twilight. I set up my tent quickly, my hands trembling. The air was still, too still. I lit a small fire and sat there, staring into the flames. Questions swirled in my mind. Why had I come back? What was I hoping to find? As darkness fell, the familiar tapping echoed around me, sending chills down my spine. I clutched my flashlight, heart beating fast. I scanned the area, but nothing appeared. Then, I noticed something in the flickering firelight off to the side, a dark figure moving behind the cacti. My throat went dry. I called out softly, "Is anyone there?" Silence answered. The breeze picked up, and the whispers returned, growing louder, now seeming to taunt me. Panic welled up inside. I wanted to run, but what would that prove? There was a sudden burst of movement, fast and low. I couldn't tell if it was an animal or something else. But before I could react, a chilling laughter echoed in the still air. Everything inside me screamed to leave. Then I heard it again, a voice close by, unmistakably clear. "Why did you come back?" I turned, and that S when I saw it. It stood there, shrouded in shadows, a figure that seemed to flicker like a candle in the wind. I couldn't make out any features, but I felt its gaze piercing through the darkness. My breath caught in my throat as adrenaline surged. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but I was frozen, my body refusing to obey. "Who are you?" I managed to stammer, trying to sound brave. The figure remained silent, but I could sense the intensity growing, thickening the air around me. The whispers escalated, creeping under my skin. I struggled to keep my flashlight steady, desperate not to lose sight of it. Then, in an instant, it lunged towards me. No, not lunged. It glided. Before I could react, it was gone, and all that was left was a cold rustle in the bushes. My heart raced as I scanned the dark landscape, searching, hoping for some explanation. A low growl split the night. I turned, instinctively aiming my flashlight in the direction of the sound. My beam landed on a group of animals, wild and unfazed. They stared at me with bright eyes, a mix of curiosity and unease. I took a shaky step back, my thoughts racing. Did I just imagine the figure? Felt so real. Then the growl came again, closer this time. I swallowed hard, trying to convince myself it was just the animals. But deep down I knew better. Something wasn't right. I wanted to pack up my things and leave, but a morbid curiosity held me there. I felt like I had to understand what was happening, even if it terrified me. The shadows flickered again near the cacti, the figure standing there once more, looming and still. This time I called out louder, "What do you want?" The figure didn't respond with words, but instead started to move in a swirling motion, as if beckoning me closer. My heart raced again, and I took an involuntary step forward. The fire crackled, casting strange shapes around me. For a moment, I felt an unexplainable pull, as if it was unraveling a tether inside me. Just then, my phone buzzed beside me, cutting through the tension. Quickly grabbed it, my hands shaking. A notification from the Writer.s forum chimed through. New comment on Mojave Desert encounters. I opened it, thinking it might somehow distract me, but the message made my blood run cold. Be careful if you go back. Some things can't be seen but are always watching. Before I could process it, the air shifted again. The figure was closer now, its form more defined in the light of the fire. It felt as if time had slowed down. I could feel every heartbeat booming in my ears. I had to know if this was a product of my imagination or some horror unfolding before me. "Why did you come back?" The voice echoed again, this time sounding almost amused. I felt my legs tremble, and before I could think, I bolted for my car. The whispers screamed in my ears, "Stay." But I couldn't. My breath came in short gasps as I fumbled with the keys, and while I wanted to dismiss the visions, I knew something wasn't finished. Yes, I sped away. I glanced in the rearview mirror. The shadows behind me danced, and for a brief moment, I saw it again, the figure, standing still, watching my every move. I had unanswered questions, and I couldn't escape its gaze. Whatever was in that desert wasn't going to let me go so easily. The next morning was a blur. I hardly slept, the figure haunting my every thought. As sunlight broke through my window, I felt a mix of relief and dread. The desert had changed overnight from a thrilling adventure to something sinister. I made myself breakfast, my hands shaky as I poured coffee. The chatter of the news played in the background, but I couldn't focus. My mind kept wandering back to the figure. What did it want? Why me? I needed answers, and somehow, I knew the only way to find them was to go back. After some back and forth, I decided to check the forums. I opened my laptop and scrolled through posts, mostly stories of strange noises and sightings, but nothing that explained my encounter. I saw the comment again from last night, the one about being careful. Something instinctual tugged at me, warning me not to return. But the curiosity hooked me deeper. Then I found a post titled Desert Spirits. It described an old legend about a guardian who roamed the Mojave. It was said to protect the land but also warned of those who disrespected it. I felt a chill creep up my spine. Was I the disrespectful one? I spent hours combing through stories, looking for anything that related to my experience. One particular post caught my attention. It spoke of a hidden trail, taking you deeper into the desert where the figure was said to appear more frequently. A part of me screamed not to go, but I felt like I had to. By midday, I was back on the road, an uneasy mix of fear and determination coursing through me. The closer I got to the campsite, the more I doubted my choice. What if I found something I wasn't ready to confront? Arriving at the site felt surreal. The desert looked barren and alive all at once. I set up my things quickly, glancing around nervously. The area felt different, alive with an energy I couldn't quite grasp. As dusk descended, I felt the air change. It became thicker, almost electric. I built a fire, its crackle echoing into the growing shadows. The figure hadn't left my mind. I wondered if I would see it again. The thoughts taunted me until the whispers returned, softer but clearer, almost like a chant. Stay, stay. My breath caught again. I jumped to my feet, scanning the darkness. The whispers swirled, surrounding me. A cold breeze swept through, extinguishing the fire momentarily. I shivered, heart racing. That's when I saw it. The flicker of shadows extending from the cacti, forming into the figure once more. But this time it was different. Its outline shifted as if it was almost inviting me. The movement was hypnotic, mesmerizing. Help me, the voice said, clearer this time. My gut twisted with confusion and terror. Was I to help it, or was I walking straight into a trap? My heart pounded, a wild drum in my chest, urging me to run. But I couldn't. Not now. I took a step forward as the figure beckoned softly. The cacti rustled behind me. I turned, my flashlight flickering. My thoughts raced. I couldn't shake the feeling I wasn't alone. And then I heard it clearly, the growl. This time it came from behind me. Something was lurking in the shadows. I spun around, flashlight aimed to pierce the darkness once more, ready to face whatever threat lay hidden. What I found should terrified me, but instead, all I felt was an uneasy foreboding, because whatever was watching me in the darkness was closer than I expected. I held my breath, my flashlight darting across the expanse of darkness. It illuminated only cacti and the odd rock, but the growl echoed in my ears, like a rhythmic drum urging me to move. I could feel the hairs prickling on the back of my neck. Whatever was out there lay hidden, waiting. Just then, the figure stepped forward, moving smoothly from the shadows. My instinct screamed to run, yet I couldn't tear my eyes away from it. The temperature dropped, and I felt a chill wash over me, as if the desert itself had turned against me. The figure's elongated shape glimmered faintly under the moonlight. Stay, it whispered again, that haunting, yet strangely comforting tone wrapping around me. I shook my head, battling the urge to approach it. But the growl sounded once more, deeper this time, closer. I strained my ears, trying to catch any other sounds beneath the chilling call of the figure. My flashlight flickered again, and I cursed under my breath, waving it about and praying it didn't die on me. The whispers turned frantic. Help me! Find me! The growling intensified as if it understood my indecision. I felt pinned in place. A part of me wanted to reach toward the figure, to uncover whatever truth lay behind it. But the other part screamed at me to flee, to leave this sinister place behind, and I took a step back, the soft sand shifting under my feet. And that S when I saw it, a pair of glowing eyes emerging from the shadows, low and predatory. Adrenaline surged as I realized whatever monster was prowling back there wasn't just a figment of my imagination. Run! I screamed at myself, but my body betrayed me, frozen in fear. The growl echoed again, now louder, and the figure was still watching me, shifting as if it knew I was torn. The conflicting sensations gripped me, a magnetic pull from the figure and a growing dread from the beast lurking that in that instant. I felt a spark of determination. I turned and bolted toward the edge of the camp, desperate to get to my car and away from this madness. The growl chased me, a sinister reminder that it was not just the figure I needed to escape. The flashlight cut through the dark, and I rushed past my tent, glancing back one last time. The figure stood still, its whispered pleas hanging in the air. I saw the eyes again, darting towards me, almost calculating, just above the ground, blending into the shadows of the cacti. I swallowed hard that I reached my car, fumbling with the keys as my breath came out in frantic gasps. Just as I climbed inside, the shrieking howl sliced through the air behind me. I slammed the door shut and locked it, heart hammering. Before I could start the engine, I felt an overwhelming urge to look back. I hesitated, dread pooling in my stomach, but curiosity twisted my gut. I turned and saw the figure standing unervingly still, its form silhouetted against the pale moonlight. But what struck me most was the realization that it was no longer alone. There were two pairs of glowing eyes now. Whatever I thought I had evaded was right at my heels. And I was trapped. My heart raced as I slammed the car door, isolation wrapping around me like a thick blanket. The engine sputtered, refusing to start. No, not now. Panic clawed at my throat. I turned the key again, but silence bore down on me. Was it the growl I heard? Or was it my own heartbeat pounding in my ears? I glanced in the rearview mirror. The figure remained in view, but now its glowing eyes were joined by a third pair, further back in the shadows. It was as if they prowled in a cruel game, assessing my every move, every breath. My hands trembled as they danced over the steering wheel, desperately urging the car to life. Just start, I muttered, my voice barely a whisper. I turned the key once more, and finally, the engine roared to life, filling the stillness with a growl of its own. I shifted the gear into drive just as the figure stepped closer, liquid grace shrouded in mystery. I didn't just see its eyes. I felt their weight. They bore down on me, like something ancient and wild. Hastily, I jerked the wheel and spun out of the campsite. In that moment of escape, a terrifying clarity washed over me. The whispers and growls were no longer just noise. They were my companions in the vast desert, echoing my fears and foreboding an impending doom. Adrenaline flooded my veins as I tore down the dirt path. Each bump jolted me further into frantic focus. But my relief was short-lived. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a blur darting across the road. A shadow flicked past, too fast. I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt. Whatever that was, it hadn't been human. With my heart pounding, I turned in my seat, scanning the perimeter through the dusty glass. "Stay, find me," the voice twisted through my thoughts, a haunting reminder that something was still out there, waiting just beyond the reach of my headlights. A rustling came from the bushes nearby, followed by low growls creeping closer to my car. The shadows thickened, merging together into a swirling mass. My breath quickened. Were they following me? Or was I just caught in a trap of my own making? I fished through my pockets for my phone. No reception in this godforsaken place. I cursed myself for not being more prepared. My only option was to keep driving. I slid back into gear, feeling the weight of the approaching shadows. Just as I pressed the accelerator, something slammed against the side of my car. The impact rattled my bones. I whipped my head to the left, just in time to see a massive figure retreat into darkness. I couldn't shake the feeling that it was testing me, observing my every move. Confusion swirled in my mind. What did it want? As I struggled to comprehend, I heard it again, another voice, more frantic, coming from deeper in the desert. Help me. That S when I realized there was more than one danger lurking in the dark. My instincts screamed for me to leave, and this time I didn't hesitate. The gnawing dread in my gut pushed me forward. I had to know the truth behind this nightmare before it consumed me. I pressed the accelerator harder, my heart pounding as the headlights danced wildly over the gravel road ahead. The car lurched forward, a thin line of safety between me and the infinite dark. The growls faded into the background, but the urgency nagged at me like a splinter. If someone was out there, we had to find them. Suddenly, the car jerked. I swerved, the tires kicking up dust and rocks, clinging to their last trace of control. I glanced quickly at the dash. The fuel gauge dipped dangerously low. Great, just what I needed. The last thing I wanted was to stall out in the middle of nowhere. Then I saw a flicker of movement on the side of the road. A figure stumbled into the light, hands flailing as if grasping for escape. My instincts screamed at me to keep driving, but I slammed the brakes instead. Get in, I shouted through the window, my heart caught between fear and a desperate urge to help. The person darted closer, eyes wide and filled with terror. It was a woman. Please, she gasped, collapsing against the passenger side. They're coming. We have to go. I unlocked the door without hesitation. She flung herself inside, slamming the door behind her. Drive. Just drive, she urged, breathless. What's going on? I asked, gripping the wheel. They're out there, she panted, glancing out the back window. Her skin was pale, almost clammy. I thought they'd get me. They hunt at night. We can't stop. Before I could reply, the growls returned, louder this time. They echoed more like a chorus, a cacophony of voices that felt eerily close. I pressed on the gas, pulling forward, but I had no destination in mind. Just away. Away from the restless darkness. What do you mean? Who is hunting you? My voice trembled as fear gnawed at my gut. The woman wiped a mix of dirt and sweat from her forehead, her eyes darting everywhere. They're not human. I thought I was alone, but they're everywhere. We need to find shelter. I glanced at her, absorbing her words while trying to keep the car steady. We'll find somewhere safe. There has to be something around here. I scanned the dark horizon. The shadows were closing in. Then, unexpectedly, we hit something. The impact jolted us both as I fought for control. What was that? I don't know. A note of panic edged her voice. Just keep going. I didn't want to stay and find out, but curiosity pulled at me harder than fear. What if it was the thing that haunted her? My gut told me to move faster, but I found myself glancing in the rearview mirror again. The glowing eyes were back, and they weren't alone. Shadows surged as if they had gathered strength, racing toward us. Faster, she yelled, her voice a warning scream. They're catching up. I slammed the pedal to the floor, the engine roaring in protest as we shot forward. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered and died, plunging us into blackness. In the eerie silence, the growls turned into a roar, resonating like a storm. I heard the clicking of claws against the metal exterior, scratching and clawing, and I knew whatever was out there was much closer than I wanted to admit. Hang on, I shouted, praying for anything to give us a fighting chance. As the weight of the dark pressed around us, I realized the hunt was on, and we were the prey. The car sputtered, the engine gasping as if it were choking on the darkness that surrounded us. I could feel the woman tense beside me, her breath quickening as the silence settled like a thick fog. I fumbled with the key, but nothing happened. The dashboard remained lifeless, and in that moment we were sitting ducks. Quick, we have to get out of here, she urged, her voice barely a whisper. I shook my head. No way, we can't go out there. But before I could figure out a plan, I heard a low, guttural growl right outside my window, reverberating through the metal body of the car. The soft thud of something heavy against the roof made my stomach drop. My instincts screamed at me to act. I grabbed the flashlight stashed in the glove compartment, feeling its weight steadying my shaky hands. Turn it on, she urged, her eyes wide in fear. I flicked it on, the beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. Nothing but shadows greeted us, but the growls got louder, more menacing. A shape moved outside, something large and hunched, its eyes reflecting the beam of my flashlight like two molten coals. "Drive!" she shouted again, panic now coloring her voice. I turned the key, but the engine just clicked, refusing to cooperate. It won't start. The realization hit me. We were trapped. Just then, something thumped sharply against the window, rattling the glass. I flinched, and the beam of light quivered. I flicked it toward the sound, and for a split second, I caught a glimpse of a creature, long limbs, matted fur, and an elongated mouth full of sharp, glistening teeth. My blood ran cold. The woman's eyes met my own, mirroring the terror I felt. "They know we're inside," she cried, her voice breaking. "We have to fight back." "Fight back? With what?" I spat, feeling helpless. The scratching intensified, claws now thrumming against the metal shell of the car. Relentless. I knew we didn't stand a chance if we stayed trapped. I shifted into action mode, adrenaline spiking as I scrambled for any possible escape route. "I see something." The woman suddenly pointed toward the back seat. My flashlight followed her gesture, illuminating a backpack. "What? It's mine. I carry supplies when I go camping. There's a flare gun in there." Without thinking, I lunged for it, my fingers fumbling on the zip of the bag. My heart raced as I dug through clothes and food, breathing a sigh of relief when I found the flare gun nestled at the bottom. "Can you shoot it?" she asked, urgency pressing in on her. "I can sure try." I took a moment to steady my shaky hands. The creature outside howled in frustration, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. "On three, we're gonna open the door and I'll fire it into the air," I said, my voice steadier now. "Okay, let us do it." I didn't wait to count. I flung the door open and aimed the flare gun skyward. The shot lit the night like daytime, illuminating the grotesque creature in front of us. As the flare soared, I could see this was far worse than I imagined. More figures appeared in the light, each more horrifying than the last, all drawing closer. The flare burned brightly, but the tether of our dread had only just begun. While the light kept the shadows at bay for now, my heart raced with what might happen next. Then, a strangled cry echoed through the darkness. "No, they're coming." Before I could turn, I felt the wind shift, and something rushed at me from behind. In an instant, everything changed. I felt a heavy weight slam into my shoulder, knocking me sideways. The flare gun slipped from my grasp, clattering to the ground. In the flash of the flare, I glimpsed another creature moving fast. It had long, spindly limbs and a mouth that twisted in a horrid snarl. "Get off me!" I yelled, trying to shake it off. Panic set in as the thing wrestled me to the ground. I kicked and struggled, but my movements felt sluggish, as if the air had thickened around me. The woman screamed, a piercing sound that tore through the gloom. I couldn't see her, but I heard the rustle of her scrambling in the back seat. "Get in. We can't stay out here." With one last kick, I managed to push the creature away. It snarled, baring its teeth at me, and in that fleeting moment of stunned horror, I saw its face, eyes vacant, skin stretched tight over bone. My stomach churned. I rolled back into the car, heart pounding, and slammed the door shut. The growls grew more intense, echoing all around us. I fumbled to lock the doors, knowing it wouldn't keep the creatures at bay for long. "Did you get it?" she gasped, panic lacing her voice. "No," I shouted back, trying to catch my breath. I risked a glance through the window, where the shadows danced wildly, the creatures prowling just beyond our fragile protection. "We have to think of something quick." The flare lit the night, but it was fading. I remembered the backpack and scrambled backward to retrieve it. "What else did you bring?" "Not much, just food and a few other things." "Wait." She rummaged and pulled out a small canister. "I have bear spray. It's not much, but it's something." Before I could answer, the creatures outside began to bang against the car again, their claws clawing at the metal like nails on a chalkboard. My skin crawled at the sound. I glanced at the dwindling flare, its light flickering ominously. Suddenly, I had an idea. We can use the bear spray. If we can create a barrier, It might buy us some time. Are you sure? She shouted over the din, the car shaking from their persistent attacks. It's worth a shot. I grabbed the canister from her and popped the lid off. You'll need to aim it for the eyes, she instructed, her eyes wide with urgency. Got it. I edged the window down just a crack, adrenaline surging through me as I prepared for what came next. The creatures howled, sensing our fear, their towering figures shifting in the shadows. Then, just as I steadied the canister, a sudden wave of roaring wind rushed over us, followed by a chilling silence. I turned to the woman, confusion crossing my face. What just happened? I don't know, it's too quiet, she whispered, her gaze darting around nervously. That's when I saw it, a flash of light far in the distance, growing brighter by the second. What is that? But there was no time to wonder. The creatures were no longer scratching at the car. I could hear their heavy breathing as they lingered just beyond our sight, waiting. Then the noise returned, a deep rumble that vibrated through the metal frame of the car. They're coming back. Get ready, I shouted, preparing the bear spray. Just as I was about to roll down the window and act, a deafening crash hit the roof of the car. I felt the car lift slightly, and everything faded to black. I braced myself for the worst. The world around me exploded into chaos. The car trembled violently as something immense slammed against it, rattling every piece of metal and making my heart lurch in my chest. My eyes darted around wildly, and I gripped the steering wheel as if it were my life raft in an unrelenting storm. Then, a voice shattered through the commotion, a scream laced with fear that wasn't mine. I turned to see the woman beside me, her eyes wide with terror. They're coming, she cried again, desperation filling the car. Suddenly, the car tilted sharply as another force hit it again, and I felt the bottom scrape against the ground. My heart raced as I fumbled for the door handle, but it was stuck, the mechanism jammed with the remnants of something monstrous outside. I glanced out the window and the horrifying sight met my eyes. Shadows danced and shifted, their grotesque outlines emerging from the darkness above us. Their growls now mingled with something higher, a shrill screech that chilled my bones. My instinct to flee surged, but the car was trapped. With a roar of adrenaline, I threw myself against the door, slamming my shoulder into it until finally, it burst open the moment I landed a solid blow. A surge of cold night air rushed in, but I knew I couldn't simply stand there. The woman gasped, "What are you doing? Come on," I shouted, pulling her toward the opening, but she hesitated. "I can't. I'll be eaten alive," she cried, but there was no time to comfort her. The cries built a cacophony, echoing around us, and I was certain that whatever hunted us was closing in. I reached for her arm and yanked her free from the car. "We can't stay here." I felt a jolt of something as we stumbled into the night, adrenaline fueling my every move. Instinctively, I stayed close to her side as we sprinted away from the vehicle, the sounds of chaos fading into the night behind us. We dashed into the darkness, hearts pounding together in a frantic rhythm, our silhouettes swallowed by shadows. We scrambled up a small rocky slope, the earth beneath our feet shifting with every hurried step. Once on the higher ground, I risked a glance back. The car's framework framed a nightmarish scene, shapes writhed, clawing through the air as if seeking a prize left behind. But we were no prize, and with each desperate pulse of my heart, I urged us onward. "Where do we go?" she panted, staring into the abyss of the desert night. "Find the tree line," I shouted, the vague outline of distant cacti and shrubs hinting at safety. Some instinct nagged at me, why was I pushing through air thick with danger? But the night felt surreal, and the fear of being hunted outweighed the questioning thoughts. Just as our feet found the brush, a deep growl vibrated the ground beneath us. The air itself shifted, thickening with a menacing presence. I turned, every sense searching for the source, and I froze as I caught sight of those glowing eyes again. Poised, alert, watching us. In that moment, I could feel it, a desperate yearning to understand, to confront whatever demon danced just beyond the veil of darkness. But there was no time to think. "Run," I urged again, shoving us into the wild, trembling under the weight of unseen eyes. Yet, as we stumbled deeper into the wilderness, I couldn't ignore the whispers that lurked beneath the surface of every growl, every rustle of footsteps. Help me stay, each haunting echo clawed at my thoughts, lending an eerie air of familiarity to the chaos. What were we avoiding? What were we drawn to? We finally reached a cluster of trees and ducked behind their trunks, panting heavily and gulping the cool air. But the night had not quieted. The growling was relentless. This way, the woman pointed into a small crevice. I followed, aware of the shifting shadows around us. Just as we squeezed into the narrow shelter, I felt the hairs on my neck stand up. The shadows were closer now, flitting toward us like ribbons entwining the world around. Moments stretched. Our breaths echoed loudly in the uncertainty. Had we evaded the threat for now, or was it merely toying with us, keeping us alive for some cruel game? As the fear settled into a palpable presence, I turned towards her, struggling to keep my voice steady. We need to figure out what it is, why it's here. I saw her mouth opening to protest, but I didn't give her a chance. If we can understand, maybe we can confront it. The narrative felt absurd, but in the stagnant air, something was undeniable. The whispers, the growls, they were not just sounds. They were alive, weaving into the fabric of the night. We have to face it. The weight of the silence cracked, and the growls suddenly morphed into a cacophony, a symphony of otherworldly calls drifting suspended in the night, both enticing and threatening. Yet as dawn nodded on the horizon, I felt a pulse of hope amid the chaos. Maybe the desert would not relinquish its truth so easily, but the shadows were not my only concern. There were answers buried beneath the fears, lurking in a realm that remained tantalizingly out of reach. With that thought, I realized the battle between fear and understanding had only just begun.